Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're about to unpack a massive macroeconomic mystery. We're looking at why some nations get stuck in the dreaded middle income trap, while others just completely thrive. And the answer, at least according to the fascinating research we're diving into today, well, it isn't just about natural resources or geography. It's actually about something totally invisible. We're talking about how a nation's collective mindset fundamentally shapes its national development. So let's just jump right in with a fundamental question that's been puzzling developmental economists for decades now. Usually, we look at physical capital, trade deals, natural resources, right? But what if the ultimate bottleneck for a developing country isn't capital at all? What if the real bottleneck is literally just how the population thinks? There's this really profound insight from our source material that perfectly sets up our journey today. Translated, it basically says no high-level thinking means no high-level policy, which means no high-level status. It hits the nail on the head, highlighting a pretty stark reality. Cognitive capacity ultimately dictates national destiny. You literally cannot engineer a highly developed society if you're running on a low-level cognitive operating system. Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the invisible national infrastructure, the 5 levels of thinking, the monkey culture trap, how mindset dictates national GDP, surviving the AI era, and finally, a new cognitive infrastructure. Let's get to it. Starting with Section 1, the invisible national infrastructure. We're going to challenge the whole idea that physical infrastructure is the only real driver of a nation's wealth. We almost always assume that thinking is just, an individual act. But the sources argue that nations think too. A collective mindset is basically a community's hidden architecture for problem solving. It's this underlying, totally invisible structure that dictates exactly how a whole population views the world, how it reacts to a crisis, and how it makes major collective decisions. Which perfectly illustrates the difference between hard and soft infrastructure. Now, obviously, every country invests in hard infrastructure. We're talking roads, bridges, energy grids, the whole shebang. But the source points out that soft infrastructure, meaning how a society thinks, cooperates, and reasons, is what actually sustains economic power over time. Just look at Japan. They rose from the ashes using the Kaizen mindset of continuous improvement. Or Singapore. They transformed from a fishing village to an absolute metropolis, all through systems thinking. And Israel, surviving in a super harsh environment by deeply cultivating critical thinking and scientific creativity. In every case, the soft infrastructure is what built the hard power. Moving on to Section 2, 5 levels of thinking. Let's zoom in from that macro level down to the individual, so we can unpack the specific framework of this cognitive infrastructure. So the research categorizes human cognitive capacity into 5 distinct levels. Level 1 is basic operation. This is basically just memorizing and following instructions. Level 2 is professional depth, where you're highly skilled but in a very narrow, specialized area. Then we step up to Level 3, systems thinking. That's about seeing the big picture and actually designing workflows. Level 4 is strategic thinking, setting long-term goals and allocating resources. And finally, at the very top, Level 5 is methodological thinking, creating completely new ways to think. Now, the absolutely crucial takeaway here, Levels 1 and 2, well, they keep a society running. But to actually transform national wealth, you need a critical mass of people operating up at Levels 3 to 5. That brings us to Section 3, the monkey culture trap. So why exactly do so many people, and frankly entire nations, get stuck at those lower levels of basic operation? What's holding them back? The source material uses this really famous allegory of the 5 monkeys, and it is spot on. Imagine 5 monkeys in a room, and there's a ladder leading up to a banana. Whenever a monkey climbs the ladder, researchers spray all the monkeys with ice water. Soon enough, they learn to just beat up any monkey that even tries to climb. But here's the kicker. Eventually, the researchers replace the monkeys, one by one. These new monkeys have never even seen the ice water. Yet they still aggressively beat up anyone who climbs. They are fiercely enforcing a rule without having any clue why it exists. This perfectly captures how forgotten historical fears and societal limits can just totally crush high-level, independent thinking. It essentially becomes a cultural reflex to attack anyone who dares to climb up to level 4 or 5. And this fear of climbing creates what the authors call a colonized mindset. It's a mindset that's heavily dependent on imported thoughts. It's constantly just waiting for ideas from the outside and mostly only learns to comply and pass exams. But we can clearly contrast this culturally restricted mindset with a liberated mindset. A liberated mindset actually empowers citizens. It makes them confident in their independent reasoning, makes them dare to ask fundamental questions, and most importantly, empowers them to create entirely native knowledge, to design the future. All right, Section 4. Mindset dictates national GDP. Let's see how this entire cognitive framework builds directly into hard economic realities. Now, this is fascinating. Notice how perfectly the 5 levels of thinking map right onto a nation's technological evolution and its ability to escape the middle income trap. Just look at this alignment. Level 1 thinking maps perfectly to the import stage of technology, which results in low income status. Level 2, the imitate stage, leads to lower middle income, usually via simple assembly and outsourcing. But look at the jump when you hit level 3, systems thinking. That maps to the improve stage, complex manufacturing hubs and upper middle income. The nations sitting at the absolute highest income levels, they rely heavily on level 4 and 5 thinking, innovating and inventing. So your national GDP is quite literally a direct reflection of your population's cognitive distribution. The World Bank's 2024 World Development Report actually confirms this exact dynamic. To survive the middle income trap, which, hits right when those cheap labor advantages vanish, nations have got to transition from merely infusing foreign tech to actually generating domestic innovation. The problem, though? Most developing workforces are totally stuck at level 2, just imitating. So the solution requires a mass upgrade to level 3 systems thinking. And the best lever to pull to make this happen? Having those elite level 5 thinkers build methodologies and tools that can essentially pull that massive level 2 workforce up to level 3. And hey, this isn't just theory. Just look at Azerbaijan. They jumped 44 spots in the Economic Complexity Index in just 5 years. To put that into perspective, this index measures the diverse know-how of an entire population. A massive jump like that proves, for sure, that collective know-how and systems thinking are the true prerequisites for accelerating national wealth. It's all about distributing that high-level cognition across the entire workforce. Moving to Section 5, Surviving the AI Era. Because as if the economic pressure of the middle income trap wasn't enough, right, we're now facing a modern catalyst that makes this cognitive upgrade an absolute non-negotiable necessity. In the AI era, technological progression isn't just about early adoption anymore. It's essentially a brutal competition of cognitive flexibility. AI is completely shifting the battleground here. The nations and/or organizations with the fastest innovation models, the ones with the ability to actually think alongside AI, they are the ones who are going to win. It's no longer about just having the technology first. It's entirely about having the mindset to leverage it the best. So what's actually required right now is a technological mindset. And let me be super clear about this. We're not just talking about knowing how to code anymore. It's really about the operational literacy to restructure the world into systems that technology can improve. It's that ability to look at a highly complex problem, abstract it into a repeatable process, and know exactly which parts to hand over to the machine and exactly where uniquely human creativity is still required. Because here is the harsh reality. Artificial intelligence is actively wiping out the need for level 1 and level 2 thinking. If a task is just following instructions or narrow specialized execution, AI can already do it faster and cheaper, no question. This is aggressively forcing humans to evolve into level 3 system designers who can interact with AI not just as a piece of software, but as a true cognitive partner. If a nation's workforce just stays stuck at level 2, they won't just stagnate economically, they are literally going to be replaced. Finally, Section 6, a new cognitive infrastructure. So the big question, how do we systematically upgrade an entire country's thinking to meet this critical moment? The sources strongly argue that we must build a national cognitive infrastructure, and it needs to feature 5 really strong pillars. First up, freedom of thought. We absolutely have to protect the people who challenge old paradigms. Second, independent ecosystems, meaning we need to fund research that is totally decoupled from short-term politics. Third is an equal knowledge culture, valuing brilliant ideas even if they come from someone without a fancy formal degree. Fourth, we need a massive educational overhaul. We have to start teaching children systems modeling, not just endless rote memorization. And fifth, intellectual pioneering, offering state-level grants and support to create entirely native, original methodologies. And to make sure this infrastructure actually works in the real world, the sources propose a pretty groundbreaking metric, the National Thinking Quotient Index, or NTQI. I mean, think about it. We track GDP, we track inflation, but we don't track thinking. And you simply cannot improve a hidden force if you refuse to measure it. The NTQI would track exactly how many citizens and organizations are actively generating native knowledge and actually operating at those crucial level 3, 4, and 5 tiers. Which brings us to the end of this explainer. I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought today. Where are you on the ladder of thinking? Are you just following instructions, or are you actually designing systems? Because at the end of the day, liberating your own mindset is the very first, absolutely vital step in upgrading your nation's destiny in the AI era. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep climbing, and I'll see you next time.